Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I have a full day of baking ahead of me. I am going to be tackling a holiday cookie box for the first time. I've seen so many videos of people's holiday cookie boxes on social media over the last few weeks, so I have been inspired. So I've been collecting recipes, and today I'm going to start most of my cookie recipes, and then I think it'll take me one more day to bake and decorate them. So on the agenda, I will be making a gingerbread cookie with a chai espresso icing. I'm really excited about those ones. Then I'll be making a Mexican hot chocolate cookie, which are like a chocolate cookie that's spicy and has marshmallows melted into it. These look amazing. I'll be making Linzer cookies, which are the sandwich cookies with jam in the middle, and they kind of have like a little window cut out so you can see the jam. Those are really good. And then I'm going to be making a classic sugar cookie that I'll then decorate with royal icing. And then the last recipe isn't a cookie, but I'll be tackling some apple cider caramels for the first time. I've never made caramel. Well, I shouldn't say that. I haven't made the little caramels that you eat. I've made caramel for like syrups and stuff, but never caramel candies. So I'll be making an apple cider caramel candy. I think I'm going to tackle that today. So it's going to be a busy day in the kitchen. Let's get started. So I'm going to start off today with the apple cider caramels. So the first thing I need to do is get some apple cider reducing on the stove. So this recipe calls for half a cup of boiled apple cider. So if you can find a bottle of boiled apple cider at your grocery store, you can obviously use that. That will eliminate this step. But I couldn't, so I'm going to have to reduce 4 cups of apple cider into half a cup of boiled apple cider. So I'm just going to fill this up. And this is going to have to reduce for probably about an hour. So I will get this going while I do some other stuff in the kitchen. So to start my day, I'm going to be making the Mexican hot chocolate cookies. This recipe is from the New York Times, and I will add a link to the recipe down below if you are interested. So to start off, I need to measure my dry ingredients. This recipe has the weight measurements, so I'm going to use those instead of using cups. So it's going to be 192 grams of all-purpose flour. Then I'm going to add 51 grams of cocoa powder. Some of my other recipes don't have the weights on them, so doing it this way allows me not to have to use all of my measuring cups and have to wash them throughout the day. Then 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Then 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. And then half a teaspoon of ground cayenne. This is what's going to make them hot chocolate cookies. If you don't like spicy, maybe go a little bit easy on the spice. I've heard that these can be quite spicy. And then 3 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. Just whisk this all together to make sure you have no clumps. So the next step requires a hand mixer or a stand mixer. So I have my stand mixer here. Figured I would take it out today considering I'm going to be making 4 different cookies. So it is out and we're going to use it today quite a bit. So I need 113 grams of room temperature butter. This isn't quite room temperature, but it's pretty close. And then I need 305 grams of brown sugar. Okay, now I'm gonna put this on the stand mixer and mix it for about 2 minutes until it's nicely creamed. Now I'm gonna add 1 egg to my stand mixer. And 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. This is my homemade vanilla extract as well, getting put to good use this holiday season. So now mix this for another few minutes until nice and creamy. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and add my dry ingredients to my wet ingredients that are in the stand mixer. And now beat this on low so that it doesn't go everywhere. Just like that. And then I'm basically just gonna do this until it's combined. And just scrape down the sides to make sure that there are no dry spots. And scrape down the paddle too. Okay, this looks good. Okay, so the next step of this recipe says to form 2 tablespoon cookies and then freeze them for 2 hours or overnight. And while those are freezing, they also suggest freezing your marshmallows. But after reading the reviews of the recipe, a lot of people suggested just taking the cookie dough now and the room temperature marshmallows and forming your dough balls with the marshmallows inside and then freezing them together. And then that way, all you need to do is take the marshmallow filled dough balls out of the freezer and then just put them on a cookie sheet and bake that way. So that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm just going to start forming some balls and then putting the marshmallows inside. And that way it'll make it easier for when I start baking in a couple days. Everything's done, I just need to take them out of the freezer, plop them onto a cookie sheet and just bake them. So I'm eliminating at least 2 steps. So what I'm gonna do right now is just line a cookie sheet with some parchment paper. And then I need to grab my marshmallows. And I'm just gonna put these marshmallows in a bag so it's a little bit easier for me to grab them as I need. Okay, so for this recipe, I'm gonna take my cookie scoop. This is about a 2 tablespoon cookie scoop, and then take the dough ball. And then you're gonna basically flatten it like this. And then it says to put 5 mini marshmallows inside. And then just pinch the outer sides of the cookies together to form a ball. Just like that. So once you have it in a ball like this, then it suggests to roll it into some cinnamon sugar. So I'm going to quickly make that. Okay, so now I have my little area here. I'm going to roll this in some cinnamon sugar. And then just place this on top of my cookie sheet. And here's just a closer up of what this looks like. So you're going to take your 2 tablespoon dough ball, flatten it, put 5 little mini marshmallows on the inside, and then pinch the outer sides around to form a ball, and then roll it around in some cinnamon sugar, and then put it on the cookie sheet. And I'm not too worried about how close I'm putting these right now because I'm just going to freeze them like this, and then I'll put them into a freezer bag until I'm ready to bake them. So this recipe made exactly 20 cookies. I did have to make a few of them a little bit smaller because I needed 20 cookies, and with the size of the first few that I made, I would have only had like maybe 15. So I did take some dough off some of the balls and make them a little bit smaller so I could end with 20. So I'm gonna pop these into the freezer, and then once they're frozen, I'll just transfer them into a Ziploc bag. So I'm gonna bring these downstairs right now. Okay, so the first cookies are done. So I'm basically just gonna leave those until I'm ready to bake them on Monday, which is when I'm planning on doing all my baking and decorating. So the Mexican hot chocolate cookies are finished. I'm going to do a little reset of the kitchen because it's a little bit of a disaster right now. But before I do that, just an update on the apple cider. It is probably reduced to about half, so there's probably like 2 cups in there right now. So that's still gonna get going until I have about half a cup of reduced apple cider. Okay, so the next recipe I'm gonna tackle today is a sugar cookie recipe. And this one is from Sally's Baking Addiction. I've made a ton of sugar cookies in my lifetime, but I've actually have never made this recipe. It has really good reviews, so I thought I would give it a go. This one's gonna be like a softer sugar cookie. So there are weights to this recipe, so I'm gonna grab my scale again, and we're gonna measure out our dry ingredients. Okay, so for this recipe, I need 281 grams of all-purpose flour. Then I need half a teaspoon of baking powder and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Then I'll whisk this all together. And my dry ingredients are done. This recipe is very similar to the one I just made. So with the paddle attachment on our stand mixer, I'm going to cream the butter and sugar. So for this recipe, I need 170 grams of butter. My butter is way softer now that it's been sitting out, which is good. And now I need 150 grams of granulated sugar. I just filled this up, which is why it's so full right now. But I will definitely go through this today, so I'm not too worried about it. Okay, so now I'm going to cream these for about 3 minutes. So now that this is nice and creamed, I'm going to add 1 egg. And 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And then the recipe says to beat this on high for about 1 minute. I'm just gonna stop this for a sec and just scrape down the sides to make sure that it all gets nice and well combined. Okay, so now that the eggs and vanilla are combined, I'm going to add in my dry ingredients. And then I'm going to mix this on low until there's no dry flour. So you can add almond extract to this recipe, but because I'm doing the Linzer cookies, which also have almond extract, I just wanted these to be kind of like a neutral flavored cookie. The recipe also says that if the dough at this point looks a little sticky and it might be difficult to roll, that you could add 1 tablespoon of flour, which I might go ahead and do because it's looking very soft. So I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of flour, and then I'll just spin it a couple more times here. So now that that's done, I'm going to divide the dough in half, and then I'm going to make discs and put them into the freezer. And I also just turned down the stove for my apple cider because it is now reduced completely. And I want to make sure that I have enough and I don't reduce it too much because I need 1/2 cup of apple cider for these caramels. So that's now turned off and ready to go. So we'll make apple cider caramels next. But before we do that, let's get this dough chilled. So you can do this 2 ways when you're making cookies that you're going to freeze. You can either just make the dough, leave it into discs, and then when you're ready to bake them, you take the discs out, let them thaw a little bit, and then you can roll them out and cut your shapes. But for me, I think it'll actually be easier because I'm going to be baking so much on Monday. I'm going to put these in the freezer for right now to get them chilled so that I can roll out the dough, or I should say fridge, not freezer. So that they're chilled and I can roll out the dough. Then I'm actually going to cut out the shapes today and then freeze the shapes so that they're ready to go, completely ready to go on Monday when I'm ready to bake. I'm just going to kind of form this into a disc now. Okay, so now I have my 2 discs. I'm going to throw these into the fridge and let them chill for about an hour, and then we will start cutting out some shapes. Okay, I just did a little kitchen reset, so the counter's clean, and I cleaned the dishes so we can start our next recipe. I'm going to be making the apple cider caramels next. So the apple cider has been cooking down for the last maybe hour and a half, 2-ish hours, and there's exactly 1/2 cup of the boiled cider in the pot. But the first thing I need to do is take some parchment paper, and then I'm just going to lightly grease this pan. This is basically just to help the parchment paper stick to the bottom. So this is an 8x8 pan, and this is where we'll put the caramels to cool. Just like that, and then if you cut down this side, it should help it lay a little bit flatter. So to this pot, I'm going to add 2 cups of heavy cream. Then you need to add 1 cup of light corn syrup. I'm just going to grab a spoon so I can get this all out of here. Then you'll need 2 cups of sugar. So next I need 6 tablespoons of butter, which is 85 grams. This I might weigh out instead of using a measuring cup. So this is 85 grams of butter. And then our boiled apple cider. So now what you want to do is you're going to bring this over to your stove and heat it on high until it boils. Basically at this point we're just wanting to melt the sugar. And while this heats up, I'm just going to put my candy thermometer on my pot here. So since this is all going to happen really quickly, I want to get my apple pie spice prepped, which is basically a combination of cinnamon, ginger, and nutmeg. So I'm going to do 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1/4 teaspoon of ginger. Just give that a little stir so it's all combined. And actually, while this is still going, I'm going to do 1/2 teaspoon of table salt. So now this is all ready. So now that my mixture is boiling, I turned it down to medium. And I'm just going to basically let it go for about 20 to 30 minutes or until it hits 248 degrees Fahrenheit. Do not leave this unattended because it can definitely boil over. So I'm just going to wait until it gets to that temp. Okay, so my caramels have reached 248. So I'm going to take this off of the stove now. Just move this over here. And now I have my apple pie spice and salt, and I'm just going to add that to the mixture and give it a good stir. To get it all incorporated. And this is what that looks like. It smells just like apple pie in here right now. So I'm just going to carefully bring this over here. Just want to make sure that everything is nicely incorporated. And then carefully pour your caramel mixture into your prepared pan. And now you'll let this sit out. I'm just trying to make sure it's not dripping on the other side of the parchment paper, but it looks pretty good. So now you want to leave this at room temperature for 12 to 18 hours, and then you can cut it up into your small pieces. So I'll come back and do that tomorrow. So I'll just put this over here and let that firm up a little bit. If you've never made caramel before, the mixture that's in your pot can be really hard to take off. So one trick I learned is to fill the same pot up with water and then just put it right back onto the stove and get it boiling. It'll help you kind of loosen all that stuck on sugar. So I'm going to do that before this gets too hard. Okay, so my Mexican hot chocolate cookies are frozen now. So I'm just going to take a Ziploc bag here. And I'm just going to put these in. Because they're frozen, they shouldn't stick to each other. Okay, so now I'm gonna stick these in the freezer up here. And those are ready to bake on Monday. So I think what I might do next is roll out my sugar cookies that we made before the caramels and get them cut and then into the freezer so those cookies are ready. And then I can start the Linzer cookie dough. And then while those are chilling, I can start the gingerbread cookies. So I'm gonna grab those. These have been in there for at least an hour. They're still a little soft, but should be perfect for rolling. And instead of, I'm just trying to think of what's the best way to freeze these. So I want them to be flat. So I might cut a few sheets of parchment paper and put them in here and then put the cookies in and then freeze this completely flat. Not sure how well this is going to work, but this makes sense in my mind. We'll see if it actually makes sense in reality. So I'm just going to lightly dust my surface here and a rolling pin. And maybe I'll actually work with one of these at a time so they don't get too warm. And I'm going to roll these about 1/4 of an inch thick. So for my shapes, I'm only going to go for trees and stars because I want to be able to decorate them all the same and not have it be too hard to do. So my idea is that everyone will get one decorated tree and one decorated star, or sorry, snowflake. I keep saying star, but this is a snowflake. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of make sure that the bottoms of these are a little dusted. And then what I'm gonna do is just take my cookies and put them in between the layer of parchment. I'm actually gonna start with the bottom layer. And just put them right at the bottom. And it doesn't really matter if they're touching at this point because I'll take them all out. And then separate them before baking. Okay, so that's 6 trees done. I'm very excited for these cookies. I've never made royal icing before. Usually when we make sugar cookies, we just do like the simple icing sugar decorations. And, you know, we never really decorate them that elaborately. It's just kind of dunking them or, yeah, dipping them into an icing sugar mixture. If we're getting fancy, maybe we'll put some almond extract into it. And they'll normally just be one color, and then we'll kind of decorate with sprinkles. But this is going to be my first time using royal icing and actually like flooding and doing all of that, which I'm very excited to try. So now these can be frozen flat just like this, and same thing, I can just pull them out of the oven, put them right on a cookie sheet and put them right into the oven. Okay, so after a quick little kitchen reset, on to the next cookies. I'm gonna do the Linzer cookies now. So this recipe is from Also the Crumbs Please. Never made this before, so this will be the first time. So the first thing I need to do is cream 1 cup of unsalted butter on medium speed until creamy, so about 2 minutes. My paddle attachment is getting some good use today. All right, that looks nice and creamy. So next I need to add 1 cup of powdered sugar. and the recipe says to sift it. Okay, perfect. So now I'll put this on just to combine. I'm going to do 2 large eggs. And get that going as well. Next, I need to add half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of cinnamon, and then the recipe calls for 1 vanilla bean or 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. I actually have some vanilla bean paste with the seeds, so I'm going to do 1 teaspoon of this. And I need 1 tablespoon of, 2 tablespoons of freshly squeezed lemon juice. Hopefully this equals about 2 tablespoons because that's all the lemon juice I have. So that's 1, 2. Oh, perfect. I actually have a little bit of extra. Okay, so now I'll give this another stir just until incorporated. So next I need to do 2½ cups of all-purpose flour. And then I'll need 1 cup of almond flour. So now I'm just going to combine this together on low just until it's combined. I just got some Linzer cookie cutters and they're so cute. I'm very excited to use them. So just like the sugar cookies, I'm going to divide this dough into 2 and then form it into some discs and then put it into the fridge for about 1 hour. Okay, I just had a little snack, cleaned up the kitchen, and now I'm ready to do the last cookie recipe of the day. This is Tartine's, hopefully I'm saying that right, Tartine's soft glazed gingerbread. And then I'm going to use the, instructions or like the extras of Half Baked Harvest's chai gingerbread cookies. So I'm going to make the gingerbread of this recipe, and then I'm going to dip it into a chai spice before cooking, and then I'm going to use an espresso frosting to frost the cookies afterwards, which sounds lovely. So first thing I need to do is make these cookies. So same drill as before. In a large bowl, I'm going to mix my dry ingredients. So I need 3 3/4 cups of flour. Next, I need 1 tablespoon of cocoa. Next, I need 4 teaspoons of ground ginger. Then 1½ teaspoons of ground cloves. Half a teaspoon of baking soda. 1 teaspoon of salt. And then the recipe says to do 1 1/4 teaspoons of ground black pepper. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball this. Now I'll give this a little whisk to combine everything. The black pepper in here is super interesting. It definitely has a gingerbread smell, but you could smell the fresh black pepper too. Okay, I'm gonna set this aside now. So in the stand mixer, I'm gonna take 1 cup of unsalted butter. And then I'm just gonna cream this for a couple minutes. Now I'm gonna add 1 egg. Then I'm gonna add 1/2 cup of black strap molasses. So when it comes to gingerbread cookies, you really do wanna pay attention to the type of molasses that the recipe specifies. So this one is black strap, which is a lot more bitter than like some of the other molasses is that you can get. So this one calls for black strap specifically, so that's why I'm using it in this recipe. But if it doesn't call for black strap molasses, don't use it because it's probably not accounting for the extra bitter flavor that this molasses will impart on your baked goods. And then at the same time, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of light corn syrup. Spin this until it's incorporated. And then also scrape down the sides to make sure that everything is well mixed. Okay, so now I'm going to add the flour mixture. And then mix this on low until it's combined. I'm going to get another piece of saran wrap out. And this recipe says to refrigerate the dough overnight. But because I want to get these cookies cut today, I'm just going to put it in the freezer for maybe an hour, just so that it firms up enough for me to cut some cookies out of today so that I can freeze them as is. Okay, so I have my gingerbread dough here. I'm gonna stick this into the freezer for, like an hour, just so that it firms up. Then I'll cut the cookies and put them into the Ziploc bag, just like I did the sugar cookies. Okay, so that's officially the last cookie dough that I'll be making today. So I'm gonna tidy up the kitchen a little bit so that I can start cutting my Linzer cookies. And then by the time I think I've done those, I should be able to do my gingerbread cookies. Okay, I have both my Linzer cookie doughs here. I'm gonna keep this one in the fridge until I need it. So I'm gonna lightly flour my work area here. And now when you're doing the Linzer cookies, you just wanna make sure that you have an equal amount of tops and bottoms. And I'm gonna roll this dough out to about 1/4 of an inch thick. So just to be on the safe side, I think I'll do maybe 20 bottoms and then I'll do 20 tops. So for my cookie box, I have 1 chocolatey cookie, 1 gingerbread cookie. Then I have a sugar cookie, these Linzer cookies, which are gonna be kind of like almondy. And then I have the caramels. And then I'm also hoping on Monday when I actually make the cookies, I have a bunch of egg whites in my freezer right now from making like ice cream and eggnog over the last couple of weeks. So I was thinking of also adding a meringue cookie into the mix. And I'm thinking like maybe a pepperminty one. because that will add another flavor that I don't have yet. So then yeah, these Linzer cookies will be kind of like the almondy and fruity flavored cookies. And then, yeah, then I think I have like all of the main categories. Something chocolatey, something kind of caramelly, nutty, gingerbready, sugar cookie, jammy, and then peppermint. I think that that should be good. I think that's a nice, well-rounded cookie box, but hey, it's my first time, so we'll see how this goes. Okay, so I'm done with the Linzer cookies. This made about, I want to say close to 70 cookies, if I counted correctly. So I'm going to close this Ziploc bag, and then I'm gonna go put these in the freezer, and then I will start with the gingerbread cookies. All right, last cookies of the day. I just took these out of the freezer. Well, I took them out probably 15 minutes ago. And I'm gonna be using my ginger people cutouts for the gingerbread cookies. And this recipe says to roll them out about 1/3 of an inch thick. So that's what they look like. So originally I said that I was going to coat these with the chai spice from the Half-Baked Harvest gingerbread recipe. And I am, but I'm not going to do it right now. I just realized that that recipe says to sprinkle the sugar. It's like a spiced sugar mix. And it says only to do it on the top of the cookie. So because I'm going to freeze these, I'm going to wait until I'm actually ready to bake them, and then I'll just sprinkle the chai spice on top right before I bake them. I'm assuming you don't want it on all sides because you don't want the sugar to burn at the bottom. So I will sprinkle that on once I'm ready to bake these cookies. All right, so my gingerbread is all done here. I'm gonna go pop these into the freezer with the rest of the cookies. Plan tomorrow will be to cut the caramels into little pieces. I'll wrap them up in some parchment paper, and then that's how I'm gonna present them in my cookie box. And then on Monday, which is the day after tomorrow, I'm gonna bake, decorate my cookies, and then put them in their boxes, and then bring them to my friends the following day. So I will see you back here tomorrow, and then I'll see you back here again the day after tomorrow. These apple cider caramels were a huge hit, and a lot of my friends actually said that these were their favorite items in my cookie box. They have a subtle apple flavor, but that apple pie spice really comes through. They aren't too sweet, and the texture is absolutely perfect. Hi everyone, welcome back. It is day 2 of cookie baking, and I am so excited because today is Bake and Decorate Day, which I cannot wait to do. So to start off, I am going to bake my sugar cookies. These are the ones I'm going to decorate with royal icing. So I want to get these baked and cooled so that I can decorate them a little bit later today. So I'm going to see if I can just take some of these pieces of parchment out and use them as my liner instead of wasting more parchment. So these cookies need to be baked at 350, and I think it's 350 for about 11 to 12 minutes. These will take a little bit longer because they're frozen still. And it does say to put them 3 inches apart, so maybe I'll spread these out a little bit more. I'm hoping that they won't spread too much, but just in case. I cannot wait to eat some of these today. The house smelled so good the other day, and I am just looking forward to trying all of these cookies because these are all new recipes to me. I've never made them before. But I will say wrapping these in the Ziploc bags with parchment in between is so nice. It honestly just makes this whole thing a breeze. And doing it like this, where I made all of the cookie dough on one day and then I bake them on another day, makes it so my days aren't super long. I think I spent like 8 hours in the kitchen on the first day of baking, so it's nice that I can kind of split this into 2 days. So my oven is preheated, so I'm going to put these in the oven right now. That's one in. And I might just rotate these halfway through because I have them on the top and bottom rack right now, just so that neither one gets too cooked on the top or the bottom. All right, my cookies are ready. Oh no, one of them burns here. I have one, I don't know if you can see it, but there's one that's a little well done in the corner. That'll be my taste tester, I guess. This is why it's always nice to make a few extra cookies just in case something does go wrong. But overall, these look really good. They didn't spread that much, so they held their shape, which is exactly what I wanted because I will be decorating these cookies. So I'm going to put these on a cooling rack now. Since I already have these cookie sheets lined with parchment paper, I'm just going to take my cookies and put them right on this already used parchment. It says leave 1 inch between them, so I feel like this is probably good. So I'm going to throw these in. So these need to bake for between 7 and 15 minutes, which is quite a big range, but I'm assuming that's because it depends on the size of your cookies. So I'm going to set my alarm for 7 minutes and then I'll just check up on them. And I will also flip the trays in the oven to make sure that they're baking evenly. Okay, so I just took out the gingerbread cookies from the oven. These took about 13 minutes. It is very hard to tell if they are ready, but the bottoms look good and they've kind of lost their sheen that they had when they first went in. So I'm going to assume that they are ready. So I'm just going to transfer these now to the cooling rack. And originally I thought that I would like decorate my cookies in between baking, but because they don't bake for that long, I think I'm just going to bake all of my cookies now and then decorate them. That way I don't accidentally like burn something in the oven because I was too distracted. I feel like once I get into the decorating, I'm going to be like hyper focused on it, so I don't want to risk burning any of the cookies. And then I have 4 more gingerbread cookies that I need to throw into the oven. So I think I'm going to do the Mexican hot chocolate cookies next because they have kind of a similar flavor profile to the gingerbread cookies, and that way I don't have to change out the parchment paper. So I'll do the Mexican hot chocolate cookies next, then I'll do the Linzer cookies, and then that's all 4 cookies that I have already baked. And I guess while we're waiting, I can show you the caramels. So yesterday I cut up all the pieces of caramel and I wrapped them all in little pieces of parchment. And I ended up with 125 little caramels. So I have lots to give out and I just have them in this little container. They are so good. I forgot to add the chai spice to the cookies before they went into the oven. And this is because I'm combining 2 different recipes for this gingerbread cookie. So it's one recipe for the base and then the topping, so like the chai spice and the decorations and the frosting are from another recipe. So I unfortunately forgot the chai spice. If I pull up the recipe here, so the chai spice originally was supposed to go on top, like you would sprinkle it on and then bake it. and it had like your classic gingerbread or chai spices. So cinnamon, ginger, cardamom, nutmeg, allspice, ground cloves, and sugar. So what I think I'm gonna do, the only spice that isn't currently in the cookies is allspice and cardamom. So what I think I'm gonna do is add a little bit of cardamom to the frosting. It's an espresso frosting. So I'll add a little bit of cardamom so you still get that kind of chai flavor just in the icing. I don't think it's gonna be perfect. It's not gonna be as good as these cookies probably could have been, but I think that's a good compromise. That way I can still get the little bit of chai spice in here. So I have all of these Mexican hot chocolate cookies here. I think these ones spread quite a bit, so I want to make sure. These ones need 3 inches. These ones, when you look at the photos of them, they're very flat and the marshmallow really oozes, so I definitely want to make sure that these ones have enough space to spread out. So these are what the hot chocolate cookies look like after being in the oven. They spread quite a bit and they're definitely like not a neat cookie, but these smell so good right now. So I'm just letting them cool for 5 minutes on the cookie sheet and then I'm going to transfer them to the cooling rack. So I think for these ones, I might have kept them in the oven for a little bit too long. In the photos, you should be able to see the marshmallow, and you can in some of them, but I almost think that they melted a little bit too much and became kind of incorporated into the dough. So next time I wouldn't bake them for as long. I would just bake them just until you can see the marshmallow kind of peeking out. But some of them look like the photo. Okay, these ones overall look pretty good. I think I could have made them a little bit smaller, lesson learned, because they spread quite a bit. These are a lot larger than these cookies, but they look pretty delicious. And they smell so good. I wish I could have one right now. Okay, so while those cool, next cookies I need to make are the Linzer cookies. These also need to be baked at 350, so the oven is already at the correct temperature. Okay, so for these Linzer cookies, it says to place them about 1 to 2 inches apart. I'm just going to use the same parchment paper that's in my bag here. I could have probably fit one more on there if I had a bigger piece of parchment, but I'm just going to leave that for right now. I don't want to risk these spreading too much. Okay, now these are going to go in for 9 to 10 minutes. And again, probably just a little bit longer because they're frozen. So that actually wasn't that bad. I have all 4 of my cookies baked. So now I get to decorate and I'm very excited. So I just need to grab some of the ingredients. I'm gonna start with the sugar cookies and then kind of work my way this way. So for this recipe, for the royal icing meringue powder, I'm gonna need to beat together 4 cups of sugar, 5 tablespoons of warm water, and 3 tablespoons of meringue powder. What I'm gonna do is divide this up. I want 3 different shades of green for the trees, a white, and a blue. So I need 5 colors. So I'm gonna divide this up into 5 different bowls. And I'm hopefully gonna have enough for this recipe. So when you're flooding cookies, you'll have an icing that's a little thicker to make like the outline, and then you flood the cookie with a thinner icing. I don't want it to be too dark, so I'm just gonna open this up and just take a little That actually might have been too dark. We'll see. So it's like a sky blue right now. Which I think is okay. And then I'll have like white accents. This as my outline. And I'll add a little bit more water so that I can flood it. I've never done this before, so I'm just gonna go for it and see what happens. And then this is my flooding. There we go. Eh, not bad for my first one. I might make these holes bigger too for all of them. For the snowflakes, I'm gonna outline the cookies. And I've been doing this in alternating colors. So some of them I'll do all blue with white accents, and then some I'll do white with blue accents. And then what I've been doing is taking the blue and making lines like this. And they don't have to be perfect because they kind of blend in. Then I make 6 little dots like that, and then one in the middle. Just like that. Sugar cookies are done. That is the finished product there. Some of them have flooded a little bit too much, but overall they look pretty good. So for the Linzer cookies, essentially what I'm going to do is take a bottom and then take a top and put jam in between. So I'm going to do the snowman with strawberry jam and then the bells with apricot jam. You don't want to do too much. Very simple, but very beautiful. So I'll have to wait to powder, add some powdered sugar after. And now I want to give one a try. I have heard that they're better when they sit for a day and the jam kind of soaks into the cookies, but they are very dry. Definitely not my favorite cookie, but they look really pretty and maybe they'll taste better tomorrow. Maybe I'll try one of these hot chocolate ones too. I'm just gonna do half because I want to save half for my husband for when he gets home. This is a winner. Even though you can't see the marshmallow like you're supposed to in the photo, you get that like chewiness from the marshmallow. It's so good. And the spice is very subtle. It's like just kind of hitting you in the back of the throat, but it's not overwhelming. This is a good cookie. Definitely a winner. And I might as well try my little burnt Christmas tree cookie. So the royal icing is pretty much set. When I push my finger into it, it's just indenting a little bit. You really can't go wrong with sugar cookies. Even though the sugar cookie is burnt on the back, it's still really good. I wish I would have put vanilla extract into the royal icing, but they're great. These were easy and they're delicious. Really happy with the way these ones turned out. So now I'm gonna work on the peppermint meringue cookies. Okay, so to my stand mixer, I'm going to add 2 egg whites, 1/8 of a teaspoon of cream of tartar, and then 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. And then I'm just gonna mix this until I have soft peaks. So now I'm gonna gradually add in 1/2 of a cup of sugar, just a little bit at a time. So while that was going, I turned up my oven to 225, and I'm just gonna line 2 cookie sheets with some parchment paper. Try to get as much of this off of here as I can. I'm just trying to look at my cookies, and I think I need a red element, so I'm going to add a little bit of red dye to my meringue here, and I'm just going to swirl it in. So I don't want to mix it completely because I kind of want the white and red. Do a little bit at a time, I guess. And then all I'm gonna do is make little meringue cookies like this. I'm just gonna sprinkle some candy canes, crushed candy canes on some of them. I'm gonna do like half and half. Okay, so now I'm gonna put them into the oven for 1.5 hours. So I forgot to film myself making the espresso frosting, so the recipe is as follows. 1 stick or half a cup of unsalted butter that is melted, 3 cups of powdered sugar, 1.5 teaspoons of instant espresso powder. I used instant coffee because I didn't have any espresso powder handy, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and 1/4 cup of heavy whipping cream. And to make the frosting, all you do is combine all of the ingredients in a bowl and mix them all together with a hand mixer. So this icing for these cookies is honestly some of the best icing I've ever made. I haven't tried the cookies yet, but this icing is incredible. Highly recommend this. I want to just eat this with a spoon. And here are what the finished products look like. So I have the Linzer cookies, the sugar cookies, the Mexican hot chocolate cookies, the apple cider caramels, the gingerbread cookies with a chai espresso frosting, and some peppermint meringues. They look so good. I'm very proud of myself, but I am exhausted. But I'm gonna go tidy up my kitchen now because it is an absolute disaster. But if you like this video, please make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. I hope you have a lovely holiday season.